Kia ora and good afternoon. My project is a cultural pedagogical study of Maori cultural practices in Maori medium settings in Aotearoa. The following whakatoki are the driving principles of this Fulbright inquiry project. Ko te reo te tuakiri, ko te reo toku ahure, ko te reo te ora. My language is my awakening, my language is the window to my soul. E karakia. Sky Father and Earth Mother and the family of gods, infuse your blessings upon this work. My pepeha, ko waiahau, who am I? Ko Angela Palmieri toku inua, my name is Angela Palmieri. Ko Giocondo Palmieri toku papa, my father's name is Giocondo. Ko Norma Palmieri toku mama, my mother's name is Norma. Taku Tuahine ko Maria Palmieri. My sister's name is Maria. No America, Venezuela, a Italia ahau. I am American, Venezuelan, and Italian. Ko El Avila Temona. El Avila is the mountain. Ko El Guaire Te Agua. El Guaire is the river. Noreira Tenakoto, Tenakoto, Tenakoto Katoa. I was born in Caracas, Venezuela. My parents were born in Abruzzo, Italy. I immigrated to the United States when I was 7. I have been a teacher for 16 years, and in 2001, I founded the Spanish Dual Language Immersion Program at John Muir Elementary School in Los Angeles, which now has over 300 students. Approximately 50% of our students are Spanish-speaking Latino, and the other 50% are English-speaking from many different cultures. The goal of our program is for our students to be bilingual, bicultural, and biliterate in Spanish by the 12th grade. Our area of need is the development of cultural pedagogy based on the indigenous peoples of Latin America. Indigenous languages encompass a unique vision of life and the world. Their disappearance would imply a loss of the unique worldview, an important part of humanity. Indigenous cultures teach us that our land is sacred and that all people are connected. Latin American indigenous cultures in Spanish bilingual programs must be methodically taught and incorporated into the curricula. These programs must also teach the cultures of Latin America as well as their indigenous peoples. The purpose of my project was to document the cultural pedagogy of Maori medium schools and to create a guide for U.S. bilingual teachers based on indigenous pedagogy. The goals for my project were to document cultural pedagogy in Maori medium settings and to convert these practices into universal indigenous education strategies, as well as to align these practices to indigenous Latin American practices. The steps to creating my Fulbright project were as follow. I visited Maori medium schools in Aotearoa to identify cultural pedagogy used in schools. The schools that I visited in Aotearoa are as follow. I interviewed and surveyed Maori medium teachers and principals to identify the cultural pedagogical practices used by their schools. I surveyed 276 Maori medium New Zealand schools. The schools that responded were the following. I reviewed Maori medium research and identified cultural pedagogical practices. I interviewed John McCaffrey, one of the founding members of the Te Reo Māori Society and lecturer at University of Auckland. I extracted the cultural pedagogical practices from Maori medium schools and placed them onto a website. I described the pedagogical practices through description, photos, videos, and research. I provided ideas for the implementation of the Maori cultural practices for Spanish bilingual teachers in the United States. I also provided ideas for the implementation of Latin American indigenous practices for Spanish bilingual programs in the United States. I separated the Maori cultural pedagogical practices into two categories, the tangible and the intangible. The intangible indigenous practices guide the tangible. The tangible can only be understood and interpreted through the intangible. For the purpose of my project, these practices have been divided into two, the physical and the spiritual. Intangible indigenous practices cannot be described, they must be felt. They are the spiritual side of indigenous cultures. The intangible Maori cultural practices that I observed and documented were the following. The tangible indigenous practices are the physical form of the intangible, what we can see and describe. The physical or tangible Maori cultural practices that I observed and documented were the following. For the purpose of this presentation, I will focus on the tangible cultural pedagogical practices observed in Maori medium schools. The Te Ao Maori worldview that I focused on for my project were the aspects of tikanga, customs and traditions, and the Te Reo Maori language. The Maori cultural practices that align with Latin American indigenous practices are the following. Culture embedded in daily practice. In Maori medium school settings, language and culture are inextricably connected. Language is culture and culture is language. Cultural practice number 1, teaching cultural performing arts, kapahaka. Cultural practice number 2, hakinakina, traditional sports and games, example, kiorahi. Cultural practice number 3, importance of environmental science, papatuanuku, god of the earth. Cultural practice number 4, moteatea, traditional Maori chants and laments. Cultural practice number 5, karakia, Maori prayers, incantations, or intentions. Cultural practice number 6, embedding whakatoki into daily practice. Cultural practice number 7, kemu Maori, Maori instructional games. Maori cultural practices that can be applied, transferred, or used as universal indigenous practices in Spanish bilingual programs in the United States. Korero tara, oral storytelling, waiata, moteatea. Decolonization, teaching accurate indigenous histories. Pepeha, identifying a school's geographic belonging. These are some examples of one school's pepeha. These are student examples from Newton Central School in Auckland. Teaching indigenous culture through art and music. Integrating indigenous art and music is a crucial component to teaching indigenous culture in schools. Examples of art and music instruction in Maori medium schools that I observed. Tuakanatena is a Maori cultural practice where older students are paired with their younger peers. Ako in schools. Most Maori medium schools will separate their grade level units into hubs. These hubs are given names that reflect a part of the Maori culture. Separation of Te Reo Maori and English. In Maori medium educational settings, language programs are housed in separate buildings. Whare hui kura matua are parent meetings that are held once per term in Maori medium education. Whare hui are school assemblies where students and teachers gather each Monday and Friday. A whare hui led by students is when older students call a meeting as a group with their teachers to discuss any issue. A noho marae is a weekend stay at a marae in order to learn about the customs, traditions, tikanga, and protocol of the Maori culture. Te kohangareo, early childhood education in Te Reo Maori that incorporates language, culture, and traditional knowledge. Place-based learning focuses on learning and teaching within the local community of the students as well as local and indigenous heritage. Kaumatua, or elders in the schools, are seen as the guardians or kaitiaki of the Maori language and culture. Pofiri, a Maori welcoming practice that schools use to welcome new students and new staff at the beginning of each term. Ako, reciprocal teaching, where the teacher acts as a facilitator and the student and teacher are involved in a reciprocal learning relationship. Embedding Indigenous literature into the curricula allows culture to be taught through literacy. Indigenous murals in schools are a powerful way of incorporating culture, history, and art in a school's environment. These are examples of Indigenous art and murals in schools across Aotearoa. Giving students the opportunity to learn Te Reo Māori gives them access to Te Ao Māori, or the Māori world view. Nā Manu Kōrero are Māori speech competitions for secondary students that encourage fluency in Māori and English. Other Indigenous education recommendations for U.S. Spanish bilingual programs. Ensuring that a school's culture values the teaching of Indigenous practices is a crucial component to incorporating Indigenous education into a school's curricula. Who are the Indigenous people of Latin America? The Maya, the Aztec, Quechua, Aymara, Guarani, Mapuche, Wayu, amongst many others. This is a map of Indigenous languages in Latin America. The red circles are the larger Indigenous groups. These are the percentages of the Indigenous populations of each country in Latin America. 50 million Indigenous inhabitants and over 550 different languages spoken in 21 countries in Latin America. My next steps after the Fulbright teaching experience includes getting a doctorate in Latin American Studies with an emphasis on Indigenous culture and education. The Indigenous Community Alliances in Los Angeles are as follow. Alliance with Academia Semillas del Pueblo, Los Angeles' first Indigenous schools. Alliance with UCLA. UCLA has mapped out the Indigenous peoples of Los Angeles along with the organizations that serve them. The final website, aotearoa-spanish.wordpress.com, is still not completed. Stay tuned. How will I know when I have captured enough? Wise words from Faya Rongomai Verco. To the schools and teachers and students, principals and parents who welcomed me and treated me like family, Tenakwe, you have forever changed my life. To my advisor Eric and his wife Anne, thank you for being supportive advisors and friends. Thank you, Fulbright New Zealand, for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Dedication to Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud. Thank you for the best experience of my life. Thank you, Tena Koto. If you would like to join me for a further showing of this presentation, it will be on June 14th at Te Ara Whanui in Alice Town. See you there.